Hey, beloved, today we're talking about God's peace and how we can experience that in our homes with our families. If you missed my Fatherwards video this week, I shared about how you can protect yourself from worry and experience God's peace right there in your home with your kids going crazy. So go back and see that. I want you to go back. I promise I'll be right here when you get back. So now you've begun practicing turning your worry into prayer. Boy, that set me free when I started praying out loud as soon as that worry comes in, and I acted like a thought ninja and grabbed it and turned it around. And so now you're learning how to thank God, and now God's peace is starting to fill you up a little bit. Don't you love that peace that passes on understanding? Because it doesn't make sense. That's what that verse means. It passes human understanding because you should be going crazy. But when the supernatural peace comes, because you learn how to pray away a worry and give it back to the Father so he can give you peace, it changes everything. But what about when you come home on Friday night and your whole house is in chaos? I'm pulling up the driveway and Jill's giving me that look and ain't no peace going on here tonight. So what do you do then? Well, let's go back and remind ourselves what Philippians 4 says, right? It says, don't be anxious about anything, but in everything you're going through, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God will surpass all of your understanding. As a matter of fact, it will guard your heart, the Bible says, and your mind in Jesus Christ. You know, beloved, most people read this and begin praying for peace in their homes, right? I'm not saying that it's wrong to pray for peace in your home, but God doesn't promise here that he will bring peace to your home. He promised that he will bring peace to people, to you, to your spouse, to your kids. See, God's peace needs a person, not a nation. People want peace on earth, right? Peace on earth happens when people have God's peace, right? See, God promises to bring peace in the midst of the storm, not instead of the storm. Because it's when you discover that God is going with you and he's with you in that storm that it changes the whole storm. You can be like the guy in Forrest Gump who's up there in the tower going, you call this a storm, right? He was trying to discover God in his own life. And when God showed up, he had peace. But do you remember that story in that Bible verse where disciples and Jesus are in the boat on the Sea of Galilee and suddenly a huge storm comes? Disciples are fearing that they're going to lose their very life. They're really worried that they're going to drown. These are fishermen who understand big waves. And where's Jesus? He's taking a nap in front of the boat. That's peace in the midst of the storm. That's the kind of peace of God that he promises that will bring our prayer requests to him. When we bring those prayer requests to him, he gives us a peace that doesn't make sense. The storm's going on, and yet we have the peace of God. See, that's his promise. So how can you experience that kind of peace in your home with your family? How can you experience peace in the midst of the storms? Maybe you're in one right now. Here's my action plan today for you, something I've had to learn how to work through in my own life. In the story of Jesus and disciples in that storm, Jesus wants you to model his behavior. That means you need to experience God's peace for yourself first. If you're not sure how to do that, go back to this week's Fatherwards Show, and I'll tell you about how you do that. Because being filled with God's peace is the only way you'll have the power to engage the chaos in your story or the hard things that your kids are going through. Now I want you to notice kind of the root of the chaos that's going on in your home, maybe with your kids. They won't stop fighting, right? Is there something bothering them at school? I remember the early days of being a parent, I thought my job was just to get everybody to be quiet, right? But when I began to discover that there are things going on in their life that might be the root of what's happening and them acting out, boy, that made all the difference in the world. It might mean that I need to give them attention. It might mean that I just need to spend some time with them. And here's one that really got me. It might mean that I got to stop modeling myself screaming and being crazy man when the pressure's high because I haven't gone to God's peace first. You know, when we learn to get to those root causes in our kids, it makes all the difference in the world. Taking time to consider the challenges that your kids may be facing with their friends or other things. The quickest way to do this is to ask questions. What happened to you today? What's going on in your life? When I notice that you're just screaming at your brother, did he do something or something else happen? See, part of this is you've got to be willing to look beyond the fruit that maybe is rotten, maybe this anger that's coming out in them, and say, God, would you show me what's going on with my kids? You ask questions and begin jumping right into their story. Beloved, when you do that with your kids, you're going to get beyond the crazy fruit of stress and storms, and maybe get right into those root causes your kids are experiencing in their life. See, when you're able to really teach your kids how to experience the same peace that you're learning to connect to, and them learning how to practice that in their own life, it'll change the way they deal with the things in their school and their friends and the stuff that hits them as well. Remember, we've talked about this over and over again. Our first job as a mom and dad to have a thriving family is to be a model to them about how to handle the storm. And guess what? We all start out wrong. There is no perfect parent born. We all got to do that. And the quickest way to get your heart back with your kids, right, is just say, hey, you know what? Have you noticed Dad is going crazy recently? I've just learned how to connect to God with peace in a whole different way. Well, what do you mean, Dad? I started turning my worries into prayers, and God met me in the midst of those storms. I hope that blesses you. You know, beloved, I'm doing these shows every week to help you not just survive, but thrive in your family. I really want to see your family have the dream that God really meant for your family to have. And you know what? It takes work to have a great family. But I know you can get there. And I want to help you make even a bigger impact on your kids. And so I've built an entire series designed to equip you to be the father or mother your family needs. And for many of you, the father or mother you never got to have when you were growing up. This series is called The Blessing of the Father for Families. There's tons of information here and that can really help you walk out that story that God has meant for you to be fathered by him. And number two, how to be a great father and mother to your kids. Check it out at our website at blessingofthefather.com. And I can't wait to be with you next week.
I ain't good enough, but it's still